What if I told you that, during World War II, the Allies carried out a secret mission so carefully hidden that Hitler never fully understood what was happening? No massive army was involved. No city was invaded. And for months, German intelligence was watching the wrong target. The mission was called Operation Mincemeat, one of the most extraordinary deception operations of the entire war. In 1943, the Allies were preparing to invade Sicily, an island that was strategically vital to controlling the Mediterranean. But there was one major problem. Hitler knew Sicily was the obvious target. German forces were already expecting an Allied attack somewhere in the Mediterranean. If the Germans concentrated their troops on Sicily, the invasion could become a bloody disaster. The Allies needed Hitler to believe something else. And their solution was almost unbelievable. They decided to create a dead man. In April 1943, British intelligence obtained the body of a man who had died in London. His identity was carefully disguised. He was given the name Major William Martin, a fictional Royal Marines officer. But the body wasn't the real weapon. The real weapon was the story built around him. British intelligence dressed the corpse in a military uniform and placed a briefcase around his wrist. Inside that briefcase was a collection of carefully prepared documents. Among them was a personal letter that suggested the Allies were planning an attack, not on Sicily, but on Greece. Everything had to look authentic. The clothes. The identity. The letters. Even the small personal items in his pockets. British intelligence wanted German agents to examine the body and believe they had discovered something they were never supposed to see. Then came the most dangerous part. The body was transported to the Spanish coast and released into the sea near Huelva. Spain was officially neutral during the war, but German intelligence had strong connections inside the country. The British knew that if Spanish authorities discovered the body, there was a chance the briefcase would eventually reach German hands. And that's exactly what they hoped would happen. When the body was discovered, Spanish officials recovered the briefcase. British intelligence watched carefully. They couldn't simply demand the documents back. That would expose the entire deception. Instead, they had to pretend that Major Martin was real and that the documents were genuine. The Germans took the bait. German intelligence obtained information from the documents and began reporting that the Allies were preparing to attack Greece. But the British didn't stop there. They reinforced the deception with additional fake communications. Messages were created to make the supposed invasion plans look even more convincing. The Germans began moving resources toward the Balkans. And this was exactly what the Allies wanted. Because while German attention was being pulled toward Greece and the Balkans, the real Allied invasion force was preparing for Sicily. On July 10, 1943, the Allies invaded Sicily. The Germans had been warned about the possibility of an Allied attack, but their intelligence had been badly confused by the deception. Operation Mincemeat had helped convince the German leadership that Sicily was not the main target. The consequences were enormous. The invasion of Sicily succeeded. The campaign eventually contributed to the collapse of Mussolini's government and helped open the way for the Allied advance into Italy. But perhaps the most remarkable part of Operation Mincemeat was how much depended on a single dead man and a briefcase. There were no explosions. No dramatic battlefield charge. Just paperwork, psychology, and an enormous gamble. The British had essentially created a fictional soldier and convinced Nazi intelligence that he had existed. And Hitler's military planners reacted to that information. The deception became one of the most famous intelligence operations of World War II. But there was something even more disturbing about the mission. The Allies couldn't know for certain whether Hitler would believe the documents. If the Germans discovered the deception, the entire operation could fail. Worse, the Germans could realize that Sicily was the real target and reinforce the island before the invasion. Thousands of Allied soldiers could have paid the price. But the deception worked well enough to influence German thinking. And that is why Operation Mincemeat remains such a remarkable example of psychological warfare. The mission didn't defeat Hitler with tanks or aircraft. It attacked something far more important: his perception of reality. The Germans believed they had discovered a secret. But the secret was actually designed for them to find. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of Operation Mincemeat. In war, sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the one you hide from the enemy. It's the one you make the enemy believe he has discovered himself. A dead man washed ashore. A briefcase. A few carefully written letters. And a lie convincing enough to influence an entire military strategy. Hitler never realized that the information his intelligence officers were giving him had been planted there deliberately. The Allies had turned deception into a weapon. And for a brief moment in 1943, the most powerful military machine in Europe was fighting an enemy that existed only on paper.